Hey, it's Adam Zdroik of RotoWire. I'm going to be going over some schedule in the Premier League ahead of the winter competition at Sorare. Going to be looking over that in just a little bit. What's up, everyone? We got an international break here, and so I have a bit more time to talk about Sorare and the upcoming winter competition that they just promoted about a week ago. If you want to check that out, I'll provide the link for all the info in that. It's up at Medium on Sorare, but they're big promoting $500,000 in total cash rewards. So I figured, with all my knowledge of the Premier League, I'll jump in and talk a little bit about the schedule and yeah, just talk about where these teams are at going over the next 10 game weeks. Otherwise, as you can see here at RotoWire, we got cheat sheets, but it is the international break, so we just have the FPL cheat sheet up. So if you want something like this that has all the lineups as usual, as you can see at RotoWire, rotowire.com/soccer tryout to get our cheat sheets, to get our lineups. We have our injuries. Injury news are, still it's Thursday over the international break. Nothing's really going on outside of international matches, but as you can see, there's still stuff going on. Kamavinga sprained his knee with France. Miedema picked up some kind of injury with Japan, and he didn't. He won't be playing with Japan over the break. Philip Billing was back in training. Fabian Schär missed Switzerland's game on Wednesday. So, there's still stuff. It's not as busy as usual, but still stuff that's happening. Again, you can check out the news page, our injury page, lineups, all this stuff. I did a Twitter thread at RotoWire Soccer recently about our team pages. I'll probably do a few more over the next couple months just to show people a little bit of what we have on the site. But I'm going over the schedule because I did some digging, did some searching. There's not a ton of places, or I could probably count on one hand how many places actually list out schedule for all these teams just on one simple page. It actually wasn't that easy to find. There's a fantasy site or here and there that have somewhat of what I'm looking for, but for other sports, you have one page. You basically have teams 1 through 20, and you have the upcoming schedule over the next 5, 10 game weeks, whatever, and then you can throw in ease of game kind of a thing. And I actually submitted a ticket to our tech department, so we may get some kind of schedule analysis, schedule analyzer. Maybe in the next couple months, so I'll be optimistic there. But hopefully we get that up on the site. So another feature that we're trying to add to the site, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing for this show because, again, there's just not a ton of places that has stuff. And in terms of Sorare, I'm not going to be given, I've done prior videos of, some value options and whatnot. But since this news came out about the winter competition, a lot of prices have jumped a bit. The big names, like as we see on the screen, Rodri, De Bruyne, whoever, those prices aren't really moving more. But if you go to the bottom range, the price from, I don't know, 100 to 300, something like that, those guys are moving up a little more because of this competition. I think that's kind of the goal. That was kind of the goal of Sorare. Let's create this competition. We're going to give out money, but also the price of a lot of these cards is going to boost a little bit. It's going to boost the price of a lot of these limited cards as well. And I think that was kind of the main goal with it. We'll see how the competition actually works, and we'll see, how competitive it's going to be. Are there going to be certain Sorare users who are, taking money every week because they have all the best players? I believe it is cap 270, but it's not the hardest thing to come up with a cap 270. It obviously there is an advantage for everyone who already had a bunch of Premier League cards as well. I know people have been mentioning that on Twitter, whereas everyone who's already has all the current season Premier League cards, they don't have to go out and buy all these cards who have now gone up in price, sometimes doubled, tripled, quadrupled even. So otherwise, going on at Sorare, I'm still waiting for an invite to Rivals. All these people have been talking on Twitter for past month or two. Kind of on the outside of looking looking in on that one. Probably will have content, but it already feels like I'm kind of behind in terms of what's going on in Rivals. So pretty eager to check that out once it is released to the public. So we'll probably have some content with that. Um, we'll see how it goes. But for now, let's get to why I actually started this year. So schedule analysis, and as I said, you can't really find this stuff at many places, but if you want, you can. I mean, you can really take a screenshot of this YouTube video kind of thing. I have 4 different slides, 5 teams each slide, and it basically shows you over the next 10 game weeks who these teams are playing. I have in parentheses how many games are these teams actually playing in the winter competition for Sorare. The only one that actually isn't a technical game, there are a few games that are just not being included in game weeks, which you can find on the actual write-up from Sorare. There's 4 of those games, but Brentford and Manchester City, their game, I believe it's in like 6 game weeks from now, which would be, I don't know, game week 18 or 19. That match is postponed because Manchester City are playing in the Super Cup. So that is the one thing. If you're watching this, I don't know, for FPL purposes, so there is a game missing there for Brentford and Manchester City, but I'm just going to run through here. So I highlighted in green the really easy matchups, highlighted in red the really hard matchups, and then all the white is kind of, okay, maybe it's a little hard, but maybe not overly hard. Maybe it's a little easy, but not too easy kind of a game. So there's a lot of white in here because that's just, okay, a game that maybe they can win, but, maybe they can lose. Just a kind of more even match, you'll say. And I just went through this pretty much all these games myself and highlighted myself. There's no special algorithm used to put out the green and reds here to show what game was better than the others. Kind of went just off the dome here with what I thought with these matches. And once you get scrolling here a little bit, you're going to find that a lot of the teams with the good teams, the Arsenals, the Manchester Cities, the Liverpools, they have more green. It seems like the teams at the top, the better teams, have some easier games, which obviously kind of makes sense because they're going against the bad teams a little more. And then some of the teams fighting near the bottom of the table, they have more red. Though, I mean, as you can see with Aston Villa right on the screen here, if you look at, for the purpose of this, maybe you want to buy cards. Maybe you want to wait to buy Aston Villa cards, I guess, is the purpose of looking at a schedule like this. Okay, so they got at Tottenham, home against Manchester City, home against Arsenal. Even at Bournemouth isn't the easiest thing. At Brentford, I could have highlighted at Brentford as a red for Aston Villa as well. But maybe you want to, you got the 5 game weeks there. Maybe you want to wait to buy some Aston Villa pieces. Maybe you want to look at it in the second half here of this winter competition. So you got Sheffield United coming up. You got the home against them, home against Burnley. We'll see what the injury status of Newcastle is. We'll see how Manchester United are playing. But clearly, the second half of the next 10 game weeks, Aston Villa have a much easier schedule. So if you're looking to buy whoever from their team, any of their cards right now, maybe you should wait a little bit, because at this point, when the competition just came out, it was just announced a week ago from when I'm talking. I think it was maybe November 9th. It was announced, kind of a thing. So the prices have kind of reached a peak a little bit. Maybe they're at a plateau right now, about a week after that announcement. And I think once the games get going a little bit, maybe after a couple tough matchups in this Aston Villa situation, maybe the guys like, I don't know, John McGinn, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of some cheaper players, Boubacar Kamara, Tielemans got a start right before the break, which is a little bit, I think, is his first league start of the season. So maybe someone to keep an eye on as well. They're just not going to have good all around scores in these more difficult matchups. So maybe their price is going to drop in a few weeks from now. And that's kind of the purpose of why we're looking at the schedule here. So for the Arsenal, they do have a few games that stand out. Maybe I could have, highlighted in red the at Brentford matches, but I didn't. Brentford have been really good at home this season, But in a lot of these games, they're going to be playing 5-3-2, and a lot of their goals, a lot of their success in those spots, has come off of counters. So I don't think that's going to completely limit a team like Arsenal or Aston Villa from actually getting opportunities. But otherwise, for these Arsenal matches, they have a lot of good home matches. They do have, just looking over this right now, they do have 6 away matches, if my numbers are correct here, and then 4 home matches. So that's one downside, but they're also home against Wolves, home against West Ham, Crystal Palace, and then Brighton, again, another team, injury situation, maybe not as good as they were the first couple months of the season. So I'm just going to go really quickly through each of these teams, maybe, I don't know, give a recommendation, something like that. But this is more about the schedule. Bournemouth has a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of white early on. Okay, at Sheffield United, home against Aston Villa, at Crystal Palace, at Manchester United. Maybe at Manchester United is red in another world, but right now we'll leave that as an okay matchup. And then they have a couple matchups that stand out a little bit. So if you want to look at it like, okay, maybe you want to say at Manchester United is a really difficult spot for Bournemouth, which it is to a certain extent, but okay, maybe it's at Manchester United, at Tottenham. I think it's a pretty decent next 10 weeks for Bournemouth. They have 10 matches that are included in these game weeks, and maybe only a couple of them are going to be really hard. Even then, Tottenham, we'll see what their injury situation is like. That's probably about a month from now. Right now, their injury situation isn't great. If Bournemouth was at Tottenham this upcoming weekend or coming out of the international break, maybe that's not a red because of Tottenham's injury issues, kind of a thing. So I mean, they have a pretty decent schedule. So if you look at Bournemouth prices, there's a lot of guys who are cheap. I already got a Marcus Tavernier card, waiting for that one to pop up a little more. I got that right when it came out, and then with a lot of these Sorare card prices, at least for the limiteds, once the new cards came out, the 2023-24 cards came out, they went up, the prices went up a little bit, then they went down a little for maybe about the past month or so. And now after this competition announcement, now they're going back up a little bit. So I'm waiting for maybe Tavernier finally gets on the score sheet. They got Sheffield United, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace coming up. So maybe he pops on there. Maybe his price gets up a little bit more. I might be looking to sell that, but you can look at a lot of these guys. There's a lot of cheap guys for Bournemouth. There's a lot of these players also almost start every match. Lewis Cook was a guy that stood out to me. I think there's one player on their team who doesn't have a 2023 card, but Lewis Cook is in there. Philip Billing, a lot of cheaper players. Lloyd Kelly has come onto a bigger role. I'm actually playing left back recently. So there's a lot of cards where maybe you want to do a cheap Bournemouth stack. And maybe I don't know if you want Neto there for the goalkeeper. That's fine, I guess. But one of these games here, maybe okay, they just won 2-0 at home against Newcastle. Aston Villa just lost 2-0 at Nottingham Forest. Maybe there's a couple goals for Bournemouth in these upcoming games, winnable games again in all these situations. And then, okay, maybe they have some success in these early ones. They still got home against Luton Town, home against Fulham coming up. So, I mean, maybe throw together a Bournemouth stack and, come up with some positives. I'm not even counting Solanke in here just because his price is a little more, but again, these are the things we're kind of looking for in this show, and just in the purpose of looking ahead with schedule. Brentford, I already mentioned their Manchester City game is not included here, but they have a lot of favorable games here. Just looking at their schedule, I didn't home against Arsenal. I didn't put that in red for them just because they have been playing really well at home, but they do have Luton Town at home, Wolverhampton, Nottingham Forest at home as well. So pretty good spots. And then even you can look at their away schedule at Brighton. Brighton's still struggling. Miedema just came out today that he picked up some kind of injury, or I guess he's dealing with some kind of injury. So, maybe he's not even going to be ready to start in this game. And Sheffield United at Crystal Palace. So there's a lot of games here for Brentford. Even though they only have 9 games, it's not like you're going to kind of benefit from them playing Manchester City anyways. So Brentford is another team that kind of stands out to me a little bit. Ben Mee is a player. I think he just moved back into the starting 11 because they played a 5-3-2 formation. That was against Liverpool at Liverpool. The thing I'd watch out for is Ben Mee going to replace Nathan Collins when Brentford go to the 4-3-3. If that happens, Ben Mee, his price is going to shoot up. He was out with an injury for, I want to say, a little more than a month. Came back, finally got a start with the senior team in that game against Liverpool because they went back to the 5-3-2 formation. They're probably going to do 5-3-2 against Arsenal. And then the big question will be, is Ben Mee going to start over Nathan Collins in the 4-3-3 home against Luton Town? Something you could bet on if you want. Otherwise, Nathan Collins has been playing well, so maybe he keeps the job over Mee, but it's just something to maybe you want to bet on it. And then you look at the schedule, and Ben Mee's price will probably shoot up a little bit because you got to figure there's going to be a few clean sheets in here for Brentford and a few pretty good results for me as well. Brighton, it's a difficult situation, probably not on my high list of players I'd actually look at for this winter competition. They're dealing with a ton of injuries. De Zerbi rotates a ton. I believe they're still in a situation where they need points to advance out of Europa League. But I mean, okay, and then they already have 8 matches. There's only 8 matches in this winter competition. A couple of them at Chelsea, at Arsenal. Even at Nottingham Forest isn't an easy game. Nottingham Forest has played well this season at home. Brentford, okay, home against Burnley, home against Wolverhampton, and then they're at Luton Town. Maybe not the most difficult schedule, but when you put it in that, okay, these guys only have 8. They're only taking part in 8 game weeks of the next 10. A couple of them are at Chelsea, at Arsenal, and then throw in rotation. Just not a team I'm really looking at for this winter competition. Burnley, a lot of cheap players. I don't know if I'll give out my guy I was looking at this morning, Jordan Beyer. Cheap defender, just back from injury, arguably Burnley's best center back. And you look at some of these games, home against West Ham, home against Sheffield United, at Wolverhampton. These are some spots that Beyer, he's going to have better performances than he's had at times this season when Burnley allow, 4 or 5 goals kind of a thing. And then you look at the second half of it, and Liverpool at Aston Villa, at Manchester City. Maybe you want to buy Jordan Beyer right now and then sell him, ahead of the Brighton match, ahead of the Liverpool match, something like that. That would be something I would, again, depending on how you want to do, what you want to do is so rare. Do you want to do it so you can, maybe buy a player who is cheap right now and is going to, go up 2 times, 3 times this price kind of thing? Or do you just want to try and win as much money as possible in this winter competition? Again, it's not going to be easy winning money in the winter competition if you're playing a guy like Jordan Beyer. I'll say it right now, or any of those Bournemouth guys. You're going to need goals. You're going to need some clean sheets because a lot of the people, cap 270 isn't that small. You can fit a lot of these guys in. There's these, for starters, you got these Crystal Palace center backs, Joachim Anderson, Mark Gahey, guys that are always in the 50-point range with upside, and it's not difficult to put together a cap 270 with a couple defenders like that. So that's kind of the competition you're going against if you're gonna trying to get these cheaper Burnley center backs or like a guy like Lloyd Kelly for Bournemouth, like I already mentioned. But as for Burnley, you can use these guys in the first half, maybe not so much in the second half. Look at this Chelsea schedule, though. According to my advanced analytical brain here, my advanced algorithm that I did on the spot, there's only one really difficult match at Liverpool. Okay, we're looking at here at Newcastle, at Manchester United. Maybe those can be really difficult, but I guess I could have done really difficult for Newcastle. But in their situation with all their injuries, we still, I mentioned earlier, Fabian Schär is another injury that was thrown in. So are they going to be without their starting 2 center backs and the starting left back and a bunch of other starters? Is Isak going to be ready to start? We already know what Callum Wilson's out for 6 more weeks with his hamstring injury. So is Isak going to be ready to start out of the break? How are they going to look is kind of what it comes down to with this Newcastle team in this spot. Maybe you don't want to look at any of these Chelsea pieces. Maybe you want to see what kind of happens. How does the lineup sort itself out once Nkunku is going to be back in the lineup? Apparently, Nkunku is close to being back before the break. I figure, 2 more weeks of training, he's going to be pretty close to actually getting minutes. And then maybe that Brighton game, maybe Manchester United, Nkunku will be in the starting 11. So Will he replace Nicholas Jackson? Will he replace someone else? That'll be, I think, one of the questions here with Chelsea. I'd keep an eye. I kind of looked at Ben Chilwell. I haven't really seen a massive update on him, but I think he should be coming back soon. We'll see if we get any further news from Pochettino during the break on that one. But I mean, look at the schedule. Okay, maybe you want to wait to buy some Chelsea players. Okay, at Newcastle, Brighton, Manchester United, even at Everton, maybe you buy some cards before that Everton match, and then you can reap the benefits here a little bit. Sheffield United, home against Sheffield United, home against Crystal Palace, home against Fulham. Between that, you got at Wolverhampton, at Luton Town. So you got a really good stretch here coming up for Chelsea, where clean sheets are possible, goals are possible. And I mean, we just saw this Manchester City game. We saw the Arsenal match. I think they're figuring things out a little more. I put a bet on them about a month ago, last international break, for them to finish. I think top 6 is what it was. That was about plus 180 something odds. I think they're gonna go on a run here. We'll see how they do in this first stretch, but I think they're gonna go on a run in that second stretch. Crystal Palace, already mentioned them a little bit. They have, so at Manchester City, at Chelsea, at Arsenal thrown in there. One of their games isn't being counted in this competition. There's not a ton of games that stand out, and their Bournemouth and Sheffield United matches are kind of separated by a bunch. They have a lot of. This is a team. The big thing, I guess, we'll see is how they line up now that Michael Olise is back from injury. Now that Eze is back from injury, who's going to move out of the starting 11? Is Will Hughes going to be the guy out? Is Jeffrey Schlupp going to be the guy out? Decore was also batting something before the break. Maybe Decore moves back into the 11 for Will Hughes kind of thing. Is Decore and Lerma playing next to each other? We know about their back line. We know about the consistency there. So nothing really stands out in terms of the schedule, but the one bonus for Crystal Palace is that you have a bunch of guys who are going to pretty much start every match. Maybe Olise, maybe Eze, once these games really get going, maybe these guys aren't going to be pushed that hard, given that they're coming off, some bad muscle injuries. But for a lot of these other guys, the center backs, Tyreek Mitchell, Joe Ward, like these guys are going to go, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be starting every match. So that's the one thing that you can count on for Crystal Palace. And then going with Everton, that's the same situation with Everton. Just there's not a ton of rotation in this team. They've been having success. Sean Dyche has been having success with this group. The rotation has been okay. Amadou Onana has a little knock here and there. Idrissa Gueye has had a little knock here and there. And those guys have been swapping starts back and forth a little bit. I think Onana is actually ahead of Gueye in the pecking order, and then Garner is next to him. But otherwise, this team is, maybe there'll be a rotation over the holiday period because there's a lot of games. Maybe you're not going to give Dominic Calvert-Lewin, that many starts given his injury history. But overall, Dyche isn't rotating. There's no need to rotate when you're not dealing with UEFA midweek matches kind of a thing. So, and then from the outside here, just looking at the schedule, okay, at Tottenham, home against Manchester City, then all these other games are okay. Home against Manchester United, home against Newcastle, Chelsea. Those games don't look great, but they are against top 10 sides. Same with Aston Villa down there, but they are at home. And, we've seen for a lot of these teams, Aston Villa, Newcastle, really any of them, playing away from home, they're just not the same team. Fulham, not really a team I want to target. There is some rotation here, though. I kind of was looking at Alex Iwobi a little bit. He's moved in the starting 11, kind of been in a midfielder role there next to Paulinho, who is suspended coming out of the break. But, I mean, you look at the schedule, okay, it's decent, you could say. But you also have at Liverpool, at Newcastle, Arsenal, at Chelsea in there. Okay, maybe they're in good spots. Home against Wolverhampton, home against Forest, West Ham, Burnley, at Bournemouth, home against Everton. So it's kind of a decent spot. It's kind of a good spot or just a bad spot. And I mean, you could look at it for stacks in terms of that, but Fulham, their goals have been kind of coming from all over this season. Raul Jimenez got his first goal of the season in the last game. I just not a team that I can really trust completely. Just mainly, I mean, you look at Andreas Pereira, his numbers are down. In terms of Sorare, numbers are just down overall. He's an early sub in every game, so his numbers are a little different than prior seasons. As we get into the second half here, as I was mentioned earlier, Liverpool, Manchester City, you see a lot of green there. You see a lot of green for these teams, a lot of favorable spots. basically a lot of games against teams battling relegation, as you can see. Of course, the Liverpool, Manchester City players, they're already more expensive. So if you're looking for value, this isn't the spot to go. So there's not really any advantage. It's just that, okay, the problem is when you're looking at value, you're going to be going against teams that have Virgil van Dijk, against Sorare, against Foden, Doku, whoever. Maybe not Doku. I don't know if he has a card, but a lot of these players who are already in good spots. You see the great matchups for Liverpool and Man City, and you don't really have a ton of terrible matchups. Okay, they both play Newcastle. Man City are at Newcastle, but again, their injury situation, we'll see what that looks like. I think that game's in January, so maybe a little different. But okay, Liverpool's most difficult game at Manchester City. Nothing else really stands out on that schedule. They're home against Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea. So Liverpool have been awesome at home this season. So I wouldn't call those games really difficult. Maybe hard. Obviously, playing against Arsenal is difficult. Chelsea difficult, but they're at home, so you got to give the advantage to them, and they will be favored. Same with Manchester City. I think Manchester City probably has Liverpool, Tottenham, Aston Villa, but their next 8 matches here, because that Brentford one's not included. The next 8 matches, a lot of bottom 10 table teams kind of thing. So if you have Manchester City players, congrats. There's going to be a lot of big performances for them. Luton Town, not an easy schedule by any means, and no great games. So if you just look over their home teams they play, the teams they play at home, Crystal Palace, okay, that one's fine. But still, Crystal Palace getting all their guys back, I'm not sure it's an easy game. I'm not sure there's any easy games for Luton Town for that matter, but Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle, Chelsea, Brighton. Those are the home matches for Luton Town. Okay, they're at Bournemouth, at Sheffield United, at Burnley, but those are all away from home. So you have all these home games against tougher teams. So I'm not sure there's any advantage really, and they're already a team that's not going to have a ton of possession. I like the guy Ogbene. Let me check right now if he has any cards. That was one guy I forgot to look up, but just a player who has been more impressive than a lot of people. probably Luton Town's most impressive player of the season. All right, well, my login is not working here for Ogbene, so let me try an actual site. We'll get there. It doesn't look like. Okay, well, Ogbene's cards are not cheap as expected. I guess he's 26, but so that's a Luton Town. Manchester United. Good luck. Buy some, get some Harry Maguire cards. As you can see, their schedule is okay. At Liverpool, home against Bournemouth are the ones that stick out. They do have the back-to-back road matches coming out of the break here at Everton, at Newcastle, and then of course they have Champions League games, which they're in a spot where they're going to need to win games as well. So there's already spots where they can't rotate. So outside the usual suspects like Rashford, like Bruno Fernandes, what's going to happen here? So we got McTominay and Mason Mount and Amrabat. Question will be in this midfield spot. So we have the injury to Eriksen. We'll see when he's going to be ready to turn. We have the injury to Casemiro. So that's kind of why I was mentioning those midfielders. Otherwise on the back line, there's been some rotation to where it's not guaranteed who's going to be starting really. I mean, Varane lost his starting position to Johnny Evans. So, and then Reguilon has been in and out of the 11. Wan-Bissaka, he came back from his injury, and then I don't think he actually started in their last game before the break. So just some questions there. And then even on the wing spot outside of Rashford, and then you throw in the Højlund injury. So there's a lot of questions in terms of what Ten Hag's going to do for rotation. Newcastle, so another team with only 9 matches. Another team I think you just avoid here in this competition. Maybe you look at someone like Jamal Lascelles. I actually did personally look at him. Maybe I shouldn't say avoid, but maybe there are some cheaper players who are getting some run because of injuries. The Sean Longstaff's kind of a thing, but Jamal Lascelles. So Fabian Schär, Sven Botman doesn't seem like he's ready. It might need surgery kind of a thing. So it seems like Lascelles is going to be a constant starter here coming out of the break. I think he's already been starting about the past month. But I mean, look at the schedule. You consider, you throw it on these injuries, some suspensions, some players missing. We don't know the forward status. How are you going to play them? None of these games are really easy outside of, okay, home against Fulham. I mean, I don't really know if at Luton Town is considered easy, but Chelsea, Manchester United, at Everton, uh, just so you have home against Fulham, and then it's just kind of a lot of difficult spots. So just kind of team not really looking at here. Nottingham Forest, another team with 9 matches, and they've actually had a pretty set lineup for the most part, as long as there's no more injuries. They've had the set midfield, Mangala, Nicolas Dominguez, and then Sangare. Again, not really, Sorare guys who are going to rack up a ton of points, but I think Dominguez is probably the best one of those options in terms of getting all around points. See what happens with their fullbacks because since Ola Aina's came back, he started the last 2 matches, I want to say, and then Harry Toffolo has actually remained in there. And then surprisingly, Serge Aurier has been dropped to the bench. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But this Brazilian Murillo has pretty much been in the starting 11 since given a chance. For the schedule, it's okay. They don't get into there's not really anything overly difficult until they get to the at Brentford and then home against Arsenal. And even then, those aren't games that really stand out. So the schedule is decent for Nottingham Forest is what I'll say. So maybe you look at, Gibbs White. We know about Gibbs White. We know about Wani. Alanga's been getting run because Hudson-Odoi's been out. Maybe you look at some of those midfielders. Maybe you grab a defender kind of a thing, and maybe you splurge a little bit on one of the attackers. And look at these first 7 or so games. These are all decent spots. Nottingham Forest have been playing well at home. So maybe there's more of the 2-0 wins like that against Aston Villa. So maybe it's not the worst spot here for Nottingham Forest. What do you want to do with Sheffield United? A lot of cheap players, and basically you're going to be stuck with. They also have a lot of difficult matchups in the next 10 here. So basically, if you want a Sheffield United stack, or if you just want a cheap player, the only options I think will be home against Bournemouth and then home against Luton Town, and those are pretty far spread out. So if you wanted, this will be like your secondary team, I guess. Good luck with that. Tottenham, another team, battling injuries, suspensions at the moment as well. So how are we going to look at them? That's a good question. I think so. Van de Ven's going to be out for the majority of this, so we're probably going to get a lot of. We'll see who is actually preferred between Eric Dyer and Ben Davies. I think that'll be the question we have. I believe. Let me just double check really quickly how many more games Christian Romero is suspended. Yeah, he's suspended for a couple more matches. So we're going to have a couple more matches where we know Davies and Dyer are actually getting starts. But the question is, who's going to be starting next to Romero once Romero returns? Is it going to be Davies or Dyer? I think Davies actually has the leg up. He did have a little bit of an injury, which is why Dyer came on for him in that Chelsea match when they were down to 9 guys. So maybe you can get a few cheaper Tottenham pieces just because they're Tottenham. And there's only one game that's considered really difficult, that at Manchester City match. So not the worst schedule here for Tottenham. But the question is, how is their lineup going to look? At the end of the day, because they have so many injuries, maybe there's not going to be rotation. And they don't have they don't have UEFA games to worry about. Maybe there's not going to be that much rotation. So maybe this is probably a pretty good spot to target, just in terms of, we'll see how the midfield turns out, because Bentancur is getting back from his injury. Is he going to take minutes from someone? Probably. Is it going to be Sarr? Is it going to be Basuma? What's Højbjerg's role going to be? So that's the one thing to look at for Tottenham, and then as well this center back situation. West Ham, 9 games here for them, and some difficult ones. Some a team that doesn't rotate a ton in league play. So another team that you can kind of target a little bit. The problem is that they just are already a team that, bottom 3 almost every year in terms of possession, play off the counter. Guys like Bowen is scoring most of their goals. Antonio was recently dropped. Kudus has been getting more minutes. Souček maybe isn't even a guaranteed starter at this point because he's moving in and out when JWP and Edson Alvarez is in there. So maybe there is more rotation than I initially said there, but 9 matches again. There one that's not included is towards the end there. I think that's early January, as that match is not included in the competition. Finally, Wolverhampton, Pedro Neto. We'll see about his injury. Is he going to be returning soon? I think it was initially a month-long injury, and he's been out about a month right now. So there's a chance he's going to be ready in the next couple of weeks. Once he's back, we'll probably get the similar starting 11s that we are getting before. There's a lot of cheaper Wolves defenders. And really, their two difficult matchups are at Arsenal, at Brentford, and then home against Burnley, Nottingham Forest. So you got a couple clean sheet spots, a couple good spots for a guy like Craig Dawson, guy like Aitnery or Semedo, some cheaper defenders that with clean sheets possible. So maybe not the most difficult schedule for them. So I'd look at them. Okay, I talked a little bit more than I planned on, but that seems to usually be the case when I'm just jumping on talking about a bunch of things. So there's a schedule analysis. I got 35 minutes here, and my voice is drying up a little bit. So thank you for watching this. Again, rotowire.com/soccer trial. It's a 48-hour trial. If you're looking for anything else, check out rotowire.com/soccer. We got it all on the site. Again, we got stats for all of these leagues. Again, since it's a Premier League show, we got all of this stuff here. Thank you for watching this. Find me at Zdroik on Twitter or RotoWire Soccer. Also, please give a thumbs up to this. Subscribe to our channel. If you like this, maybe leave a comment as well. Maybe I'll do some more Sorare content in the future. It's going to be busy. Next? I think once we close out Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, we start with 39 games of coverage in the following 40 days. So it's going to be a busy month and a half here until 2024 hits. So we'll see how much Sorare content we got, but I will continue with the lineup. My predicted Premier League lineups. We'll continue with that. Just check out the RotoWire Soccer YouTube page for that. That'll be up there. And then we also got our betting and DFS content. Thank you for watching this. We'll see everyone